All right, so hit that yes, I want to be recorded button. And I'm going to keep this. So lots of notifications on Zoom. All right, guys, we haven't done a stretch chat in a while. So we're super happy to share Tammy with you. She is going to kind of give her experience and her learning and her view on an AI roadmap. We were joining up and with her, and as she will share, I mean, it's such a new field and there's so much out there. It's nice just to have this conversation on, how can we tackle it? And we thank Tammy for being on our webinar. Thanks so much, Tammy. So I'm going to get us kicked off with a little bit about who we are as a company. And then I'll give the floor to Tammy, which she's super excited about. We always start here. I mean, part of what we do, Cindy and I love this. We've got Nancy on our team. Jane is in France, so we're expecting her to call in at any minute. Probably not, but she is in France, which is super fun. But we just believe in stretch, just as a belief. And we have a quote here we start with: you have more potential than you think, but you will never know your full potential unless you keep challenging yourself and pushing beyond your self-imposed limits. And AI is one of those things that we're all just learning. So part of what we do in these stretch chats is just encourage the learning around. We are going to the template that we follow format is we are going to do the training first. If you have questions, put them in the chat, and then we'll answer questions at the end. And if the questions require a little more detail than we're going to do at the chat, Tammy is more than happy to get back to you or give you a resource to do that. But our model and what we believe is empower people to grow, a growth culture. So most people that are part of our community believe in that as well. I was talking about Andy, but healthy leaders, it's first who, then what. We believe in healthy leaders across all organizations. We really are strong in helping organizations and people with winning strategies, and that is executed with high performing teams. Cindy wrote a book lately, which we're going to share a little bit in another stretch chat, and I have a book, and so we just are all about sharing our knowledge and growing together. This is who we are. I already mentioned this a little bit, but welcome. Nancy's on our team. Thank you, Nancy. Jane is in France. Mandy does a lot of our training material and curriculum development. Cindy, fireworks, clapping. Her book's been out for a couple months. She's working on another one. And then I have a book out about strategy. So we're just out there trying to change the world with our knowledge here. We believe so much in these statements. It's just kind of who we are. And part of what we want to do when we have a stretch chat is role model the importance of culture and healthy leadership and sharing these statements. So our purpose, why we exist is empower people to grow. And we are so honored to work with a lot of folks on here, and we've seen their journey throughout the years. So thanks for being part of our community. We think this is fun and energizing. So, and have fun with it. Put some questions in the chat. Lifetime learning. This is what we do in our chats. Empowerment, engagement with empowerment, and value the individual. Feedback is a gift. We love feedback, timely feedback. So if you have feedback on this, we appreciate it probably after it, not during it, but we do love feedback. So, and teachable. Well, that's what we do. We do a lot of training, a lot of speaking. Our goal is to really help our leaders and companies own their journey and empower them to really own and lead through strategy. All right, how we help. Cindy, you want to talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, definitely. Our target has always been this mid-sized company that doesn't have the full plate of resources so that we can come in and assist them in their success. We've been largely Cincinnati, but lately it's moved out further than that, which has been a fun endeavor. And when we start looking at who we love to help the most, it's leaders who love to grow and learn. And then our consistent deliverables have been helping with assessments and hiring. If you don't start with the right people, you don't land in the right place. And then helping them really understand how to grow, how to take strategy, implement it, and get their people trained. And then lately moving into more keynote speaking. I think it's just because we're getting old and we know what we're talking about a little bit. So we don't know everything, but when it comes to these areas, Darcy and I each have been independently working on it for almost 20 years each, and we just get very excited. So, we always say that we need a reason to believe when you're talking about what you do and what you bring. So those are kind of our numbers there of who we reach and how we're growing, and we probably even need to update those now.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, we've got someone on. If people could all mute, that would be great. Just throwing that out there.
Here, I muted them.
Go ahead. Awesome. Thanks, Cindy.
All right, perfect. So our three core areas are healthy leaders, winning strategies, high performance teaming, because we know that you can't ever really come to a great strategy or be able to implement it if you don't have the right people on board. But then teaming is mandatory. And I think that's why we're so excited to have Tammy today, because if we don't learn how to do high performance teaming, AI is already outpacing so much of what our brains can keep up with. It's just so much knowledge available to us in a very quick time now. And it's really going to take learning to work as a team and practicing that ability to communicate, to put your emotional intelligence in place, to have concrete methods of working together, or we're really going to see companies be overwhelmed by how much data and knowledge is available to us now.
And it's interesting. We just did a mastermind before this, and Cindy asked, what are the things that bite companies as they grow? And I think it's just not looking up. We talked about that. And AI is this on every strategy. It's a trend, it's a challenge, it's an opportunity, it's a threat. And so everyone that I've done over the last, I don't know, probably 6 months to a year, AI is on there as a learning area. And it's part of technology, but it'll impact so many things. And that's really part of growth and part of strategy. And that's why we are so excited about this, is that we want our clients constantly looking up. And that's what you're doing today, right now. You're looking up what's going on around you. And we appreciate the time that you're dedicating to do that, because a lot of folks look down, they stay focused on what they know because it's comfortable. And when you do stretch shots like this, our goal is to make you just a little uncomfortable so you might think a little different. And so if you leave here with a little anxiety, it might be a little bit by design, because that's when we stretch and grow, is when we're a bit uncomfortable. All right. And then the last one here, Cindy, is just something that we're offering, and we'll get into Tammy's talk.
Yeah, Darcy and I, a lot of you have been with us over time, and you know our passion to serve and to do what Darcy just said, give people a chance to safely think about their business, look up, look around, and process what's going on. And so we really thought, you know what, for a few months this fall, we're going to offer this very special offer where for executives and team leaders, we are going to actually give you time and a number of our key surveys for us to help offer 2 to 3 core suggestions for your business. And we're excited about that. These are the tools that we use when people begin a full integrated strategic and implementation process with us. And so we're backing this down to like a ton of information in a very, very introductory price. And we're happy to do it. We love doing what we do, and just we're putting our brains together on how do we offer more and continue to push ourselves to grow. And then today we've got Tammy here. Darcy, do you want to introduce, or you want me to keep going?
Yeah, you keep going.
Okay. We met Tammy through Jane Meyer, who works with us in marketing. And Jane just absolutely raved about her and was talking about how Tammy really brings this wealth of knowledge, because she has the ability to look across businesses, look deep into them, and then begin to really navigate and weave them together. And in our experience with her, it has been incredibly impressive just to see how her brain works. I think she's got one of those miracle brains that can see far, wide, deep, circular, transformational. And so AI began, I bet, to be such a curious factor for her because it's implementing and impacting everything. And so for her education, as she's doing consulting, she went and got a certification through on AI through Kellogg's executive management program. And when we heard about this, heard about her through Jane, we were like, first of all, we want to know her. Second of all, we want to learn from her. And third of all, will she come and be a part of what our chats are about, which is just helping to serve our business community and nonprofit community on learning and stretching ourselves. So Tammy, we really, really appreciate you being here. We're all incredibly excited about this topic. So thank you.
All right, it's on, Tammy. We're excited.
Okay, well, thank you to Stretch Strategic Leaders for including me. And, talking about Stretch, when I mentioned to Jane that I was embarking on my certification from Kellogg, she said, "Oh, do you want to do this presentation and teach people?" And I thought, okay, I'll stretch myself and do that, just right after I finished my course. So um, that's a nice opportunity that you've given me. And I also want to thank all of you for attending. I think we have a nice diverse crowd. I've looked through the different roles, sizes of your companies. And I appreciate you attending, and a special shout out to many of those that I know that are attending as well. So thank you all. I'm going to cover today kind of a high level of the roadmap of AI, where we've come from, where we are today. And then really the majority of this discussion is going to be focusing on tools, pragmatic tools that you can use in your organizations to identify and prioritize use cases, organize those into a roadmap with some special considerations around data, your organizational and resource implications. What I'm not going to be drilling into are any kind of specific AI tools. So not going to really be talking about, specific ChatGPT for content creation or text enhancement or video creation or all the types of tools that are out there. But I will refer you to a resource where you could go look at those. Um, I'm not drilling into any specific industry use cases, but I will again refer you to a resource where you could go look at that. I'm not going to be talking about any specific programming languages or the data science algorithms that are used in specific data types. And I'm not really addressing societal or personal concerns related to AI. Next, please. And I know you usually start one usually starts kind of with their references and resources at the end, but I wanted to put them in the beginning purposefully because I'm going to refer back to these throughout the presentation. But I also just wanted to start with what I think is probably the most important thing that business leaders and really anybody in organizations can do right now, which is to start becoming AI literate. And there are a lot of courses by reputable organizations out there. I chose Kellogg Executive Management because the curriculum aligned with what I was trying to achieve, and that, with my consulting business, I want to be able to help advise companies on how to adopt AI and for their productivity and growth goals. And but I've seen really good courses with MIT, Berkeley, all of, Columbia, et cetera. So there are a lot of opportunities out there for you to get educated if you're interested in that. And as I was going through my course in AI, I really realized, the importance of the human element of change on this AI journey. And so I got a certification in ProSci as a change practitioner, which is a formal methodology to wrap around any initiative, but I think it will be important in the AI journey to really consider the human side of it. So in addition to that, now if you could go back, please, up. In addition to that, I spend every morning I have a coffee hour with myself and I read a daily newsletter by the Neuron. And it is, I think, a really great source. It compiles a lot of kind of what you need to know about AI today. And it can be overwhelming, and it really could turn into like 3 hours because it's a lot of articles and links and great information for you to follow on all of the relevant topics of the day. And they have a great podcast as well. They have courses on their site, and also they have recommended best tools to use in business, by different categories of what you might want to do. In terms of use cases by industry, I found a really good resource there, the Gartner resource. And then Snowflake is a really interesting company dealing with cloud services and AI development, and they have a good report out on data trends this year. So I would refer you to that. The Forbes top 50 list. So the top artificial intelligence startups are listed there. If you're going to be outsourcing, which many of you likely will, that could be a good reference to find companies that are successful in this field. And a lot of other resources. I've attended webinars, a lot of free webinars out there, lots of articles, of course, Harvard Business Review, Forrester, McKinsey, but I want to highlight one company that I've collaborated with a lot over the years, and I think they're doing a great job in their webinars, and that's Centric, kind of in the middle there, Centric Consulting. So they've had a lot of great webinars on AI. And on the next page, I just wanted to quote somebody from Centric. So, a lot of us are probably feeling like the guy on the right, with all of this AI information coming our way. And I know I felt that way a year ago, and it's like, oh my gosh, am I missing the boat? Is it already gone? I don't really, what are they talking about? And so, as Joseph Hours says, you may be at risk if you decide not to adopt AI. And so you have to start figuring out your strategy now. Where are you going to employ it, and how are you going to employ it? And so my intention today is to help you start kind of taking that bite of the elephant, small bites at a time, and give you kind of a pragmatic approach to thinking about your organization and the key components to kind of break down AI and create a strategy around that. So I'm going to start by going through sort of the types of AI over the years and where we are today. So, and what is AI? At the broadest level, artificial intelligence is any software program that can reason and make decisions that starts to mimic the cognitive capabilities of human decision making. So, back in the 50s, good old fashioned artificial intelligence, it was really human dependent, right? So we've got rules based intelligence being programmed into machines, and then they can make a decision based on those rules, but they're not getting any smarter on their own. It's just if you want to change the outcome, you need to change the rules. So humans go in and change the rules. And that's likely where many of your organizations are today, using these rule-based software. Over time, machine learning came into play, and that's where machines are consuming more data. Data scientists are programming algorithms, and then the performance is improving as the machine is fed more data. So there's training data, and then algorithms are created, models are defined, the models are fed large quantities of data, and they get smarter over time. And those are things today, like you might, fraud detection, you get those fraud alerts, or your credit reports. That's the kind of examples of machine learning. And then we got into deep learning, and deep learning is mimicking the human decision making by taking a multi-layered hierarchical approach of recognizing complex patterns in speech, in text, images, and video. So that's really taking us to a new level and getting closer to processing information, in the way that the human brain does. So I guess a simple way to think about AI is that we give machines a better understanding of a real world context through some algorithms. We train it, we give it a lot of data, and then it's producing an output. And then that output improves over time with more trial and error, understanding, what went right or wrong, and making it iteratively better over time. So where are we today? Kind of this whole craze that we've experienced in the last, say, year and a half, it really pertains to what is called generative AI, or some people call it Gen AI. And that is also deep learning, but it takes it to a different level, which is um, generative. It's creating new content. So it can create text, it can create images, codes, things like that. It's so if you think about in the past, AI was maybe more narrow in that you could say, Alexa, play this song, and it plays the song. But now we are able to ask much more open ended questions, and it can produce an outcome. So, um, that is, where we are currently and have a lot of opportunity. There's a type of AI I'm going to mention really quickly on here. I didn't put it on here because it doesn't truly exist yet, but it's on the horizon. It's being discussed. It's called artificial super intelligence. And that is, I think, what everybody is really scared of. And this is where, if Gen AI today is behaving like say, with a high school level education, um, artificial super intelligence might be PhD level and beyond. So it'll be so much smarter. And I think, that's the thing that is scaring some of us. And I just even today, there's a antitrust investigations on the big three players, Microsoft and OpenAI uh, and NVIDIA. So, we'll see where it goes with the artificial super intelligence, but I just wanted to mention that's one that you probably have heard of, but I didn't include it on here because it doesn't exist yet today formally. So I'm going to, on the next slide, drill into generative AI, because this is, where we are today and where we really have the opportunity to transform the nature of our work. And we do that with generative AI through a few key categories. So augmentation, which will assist us in making better decisions; automation, which will be, performing some human tasks. Some of the more mundane tasks that we perform today can be done through automation instead. And then acceleration, which is, knowledge management and extraction. So scouring through large amounts of data, kind of summarizing documents or creating knowledge out of data. So creating graphical representations instead of doing pivot charts in Excel, it can just be produced much more easily through acceleration. So it has the potential to drive, more innovation, efficiency, productivity, getting more valuable insights out of data, automating, some complex processes, some easy processes. But I want to reiterate or emphasize here that in terms of human impact, I think where we are today, that AI really will assist us, but not replace us, especially in important decisions that need to be made across the industries. So if you look at potential value of making a right decision versus the risk of making a wrong decision, um, it will help you to kind of place where AI and humans can be best paired in terms of, humans still need to make key decisions if the risk of a wrong decision is high. So like in healthcare, or, if you're reading cancer slides or making key decisions like that, the risk of a wrong decision would be really high. You still want a human making that decision in the end. So this pairing of AI and humans is referred to as assisted intelligence. And it's really using AI as a precursor to get to the decision more quickly, but you still need that human decision making in the end. especially if the risk of a wrong decision would be high. And I can't source this phrase, but I heard it somewhere, read it somewhere, and it really resonated with me in that it said that AI will not replace humans, but those who use AI will replace those who don't. So I think that's an important notion to think about, as we embrace our journey with AI. Okay, so that's kind of the overview of the history of AI, the types of AI, and where we are today. So I want to now move into the section where I'm going to talk more about like pragmatic tools and how you might be able to apply them to formulate your AI strategy. So on the next slide, I've outlined here several questions to consider from a business perspective, a data perspective, technology, and organization. And obviously, I'm not going to read through all of these. You will have reference back to this and can use this in your own organization. But I'm going to just highlight some concepts in each of the categories. So obviously, an important point will be don't bring AI technology into your business looking for a problem to solve. So you want to make sure that you've really identified a business problem that can be measurable and can be improved, and then think about how to apply the technology to solve that business problem. So and think about those technologies in terms of is it something that's readily available? Can we bring it in kind of quickly? Could something simpler like robotic process automation solve it versus AI? And you want to think about your business in terms of processes and where are the bottlenecks in your processes that could benefit from a technology solution. And on that point, coming from a process person, make sure you make your processes as efficient as possible before you layer on a technology. So you don't want to bring in AI and layer it onto a suboptimal process. So those are kind of the things to think about in terms of your business. In data, data is everything in an AI, right? So it is the fundamental aspect of your business that needs to be in order to move forward with AI. So you need to understand where it's created. Is it available? I have a whole section on data, so I won't drill too much further into that. But data is also a derivative of your processes, right? So it's your business processes that give you the opportunity to collect data. So think about that connection between process and data. In terms of technology, again, you have the questions there, and I would say that probably a lot of you are going to need to outsource this kind of model development and the whole like technology question. And there are several companies working specifically in this right now. And I'm going to talk a little bit later about, some key things around vendor selection, but just to note that, to go through the evaluation, you might need to bring in some experts in AI around your technology. And from an organizational point of view, I think now is the time to start thinking about, your AI structure. If you're going to have one, are you going to outsource? Do you have people in your organization who are interested, who could be skilled? Who in your organization is going to become really AI literate and help direct your organization? Are you going to be creating a central organization? Are you going to be using external consultants and contractors and things like that? So those are kind of the key considerations in those categories. So I'm going to drill into each of these a little bit more in this presentation. So the first one is around organizational structure. So what you have on this slide are sort of three options. If you have an organization, I should preface this by saying, if you have an organization that's large enough to even consider, these three categories of options, then, you could do that. Otherwise, you're probably going to be outsourcing this anyway, but you might create a center of excellence you might have a sort of hub and spoke situation, or federated, which meaning it's in the business unit. But what this chart outlines for you is, depending on the approach that you might take, what would it look like if, and where would they report to? Where would the projects come from? How do you allocate your resources and your funding, and who's responsible for deploying it? And then some pros and cons there. So, regardless of where in the organization it sits, I think it's important to think about that there are some fundamental things that need to be in place. You need to make sure your core data infrastructure is standardized, centralized, that you have data governance and security and compliance in place. You build a standard approach to modeling, to development and deployment, and you have buy-in from all of your key stakeholders as to the approach that you are going to take. So those are some considerations around organizational structure. On the next slide, I'm going to talk about, effective AI teams. So based on whatever use case you end up coming at or addressing, you'll want to think about, who are the players to represent that use case, and you want to start doing that in the beginning, in your planning phase, to make sure you get the right mix of competencies on your team. So, your business SMEs are going to be the ones supplying use cases. They're also going to be the ones at the end using the technology and generating the business impact. In the middle, you're going to have your data stewards and your IT resources and your data scientists. And obviously, executive sponsorship and C-level sponsorship is important. And then all throughout the process, you need somebody managing it, right? So like a product manager doing project management, and hopefully you're incorporating change management, and then the operational excellence consideration too, to make sure you're considering the business aspects. So those are really kind of the key roles that you'd want to think about on an AI team. And their responsibility will wax and wane throughout the development life cycle. So some might have heavier involvement in the beginning, some in the end, some in the middle. So not all of these will have the same level of involvement throughout the whole life cycle, but just think about including all of the right roles on the AI team and structuring it, in a formal initiative from the beginning. Okay, so this is the first tool that we're going to cover, and it's called a blueprint, an organizational blueprint, and it really is a step-by-step process that you would go through to create a view of where your potential use cases are for your particular business. So this starts with the customer in mind, and it starts really, if you see that into the boxes, the 6 boxes, you just think about it that it goes from customer acquisition, onboarding customers, delivery of your product or service, all the way through kind of your customer retention, delivery and your customer retention. So across the top, you think about what are the activities that your customer does to interact with your organization. At the next level down, you think about what are the key processes that your organization does to interact with the customer across this value chain. And then kind of the double click, which is where you would start getting visibility into what your use cases might be. Those are your operational sub workflows and tasks that your organization is performing to provide those experiences to your customer, right? So what are the processes? What are the tasks and activities that you actually perform in order to deliver excellent experience to your customer? And then there's the last line, which looks at kind of the people, technology, and money aspects and risk. So your HR processes, your technology processes, your finance processes, and it can be credit checks and invoicing reconciliation, things like that. And then your risk, do you have risk around resources? Do you have market risk, regulatory risk, things like that? So this is the first tool that you would use to start outlining, across your value chain in relationship to what you're delivering to your customer, where do you have opportunities and use cases for AI? And then in the next slide, I just want to talk about the very important point that the foundation of AI success is your data. And so before you can move forward with your use cases, you need to understand the data related to those processes. Where is the data? You likely have a scenario on the left here, in the data challenges quadrant there, where you have silos, you might have multiple platforms, things like your sales data, your CRM, your ERP, structured data like that, your finance data, and unstructured data like your email, your voice messages, videos, etc. So what does your data landscape look like in relationship to those processes? And if you're not planning to purchase data, which some industries just won't have the opportunity to purchase data because it's not a rich enough environment where there are, third-party vendor data platforms available, you're going to likely need to spend a fair amount of time, structuring, organizing your data into a format that the machine learning algorithms can actually understand. So, and only once you've done that can you, get into the AI creation of like your life cycle of development life cycle, where you can start creating your proof of concepts or your minimal viable products. So data is so important in this process. You really would, you're trying to get to that future data infrastructure state where it's all in one place, it's organized, structured, governed. You're adhering to privacy and security and compliance guidelines. So again, a daunting task. And of course, there are many organizations focusing on just this right now. And I'm sure several would be on that Forbes 50 list, but there are people that will help you do this process, but it's a key thing to consider. So on the next slide, this is a tool that relates to your data. It's called the AI Radar, and it really relates to what's called data intensity. So it's a tool that gives you visibility across your organization in 4 categories. So you have customer, operational, administrative, and risk. And then there are 12 vectors. So 3 in each of those categories: customer complexity, channel complexity, asset complexity, et cetera. I'm not going to go through that. But underneath each of those vectors, there are several questions that help you with the scoring, which is a score of 1 to 10, where you're really thinking about data intensity. So what is the value of data that I have in relationship to customer processes? What's the value of data that I have in relationship to operational, administrative, or risk? And the outcome of this helps to direct you where in your organization you're going to have valuable enough data to actually consider AI capabilities. So after you've done this, you would think back to your blueprint and the level where you have use cases and sort of match up like, hey, there are some business processes here where we have bottlenecks. Here in our organization, we have rich data opportunity. It might not be available or organized right away, but at least it'll give you opportunity to understand where you may have potential to implement AI in your organization.
All right, Tammy, quick question. Just so, because for a lot of people on the call, I don't even know if they could do this. Would this be something like a Centric Consulting or someone like that could come in and help an organization do it? I mean, is that what you're like?
Eccentric Consulting or TEW Consulting could do it.
Okay. Yeah.
I can help.
Well, okay, perfect. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I just want to, I mean, because this is something that I think would be I just wanted to kind of understand, this probably wouldn't be done by anyone internal. Like you would need support for this. So someone, you could do it somewhere, someone would come in and walk through these with them and help them see, one, where the biggest opportunity is, and then two, then like you said, what's the blueprint? Okay, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that probably
Perfect.
this process could benefit from facilitation of a consulting company. And I think there are a lot of companies, including
Okay.
myself,
Yeah.
that could come in and help facilitate this overall process. From defining the customer journey and the key, business processes down to this question, and then, considering technology and vendors and so forth. So yeah, this is
Yeah.
like a whole process that some companies might have resources available when they can do it themselves. But a good question.
I don't personally know any of those. The other people do. I
Mhm.
mean, sorry. I mean, audience not included. I'm kidding. But this is big. These are great questions. I think um, understanding that there is a process, this would be a good outcome. I think it's helpful to help to know what the next step is. Well, audit and assess, and then decide what the biggest opportunity is, and then go out and do it. So it's awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the question. And this tool is a prioritization tool, so a use case prioritization tool. And there are a lot of prioritization tools out there. Your organizations may have a way of prioritizing. There are different ones. I'm not saying that this is the one to use, but I liked this one. And obviously, this is a Gartner tool. And I liked it because it looks at business value versus feasibility of implementation. And so, once you've gone through your blueprint and you've assessed your data and you brainstorm your opportunities, and where are your bottlenecks and where might your customers not be satisfied, et cetera, where are your opportunities? Then you can place them on this prioritization chart
Hmm.
and, come up with your top priority use cases that you would want to pursue. And a couple points around the use case selection. And when you then start moving forward, you want to obviously think about the business value and can you measure it, and what would that measure be? But you want to think in terms of feasibility, like what is the total budget? Is your data in-house? Are you going to procure your data from a third-party vendor? What is the state of your data if it's internal? Do you have the team composition that you need to move forward with this use case? Are you going to need to engage contractors? From an IT perspective, are you in the cloud? Are you going to need to migrate to the cloud? Do you have licenses questions? So there are a lot of things to think about, but I think an important thing is to start small, right? So scoping the project so it's a manageable size so you can get your proof of concepts or your minimal viable products out quickly and start showing the value, and then, revise them as you learn, I think is important too. So, and I'll just put another plug in here for process. As you're moving through this process, don't forget the process aspect, right? So refine your processes before and think about when you're going to be incorporating your technology, there's always a process aspect to that as well. So just don't forget the process aspect. So the next tool, this is called an AI canvas. So
Hmm.
once you've gotten through those tools and you have your priority use case, a way of organizing it and getting all of your team in alignment is to structure it in this kind of 7-step process, which for those of you who are familiar with the concept of a charter, this is very similar to a charter. It just has some more AI specific steps in here. So obviously you're going to define your business problem. What are you solving with AI and why is that important? And what is the business value? And, here in a quantitative way, the measurement. And And then you get into more of the AI speak, which is the objective function, your modeling approach, and your model training. The objective function is, the thing that you are trying to measure through your model. So if you're thinking about, I want to understand if it's a likely that my customers are going to churn, they're going to leave us. Churn is the objective function measurement there. So then you get into customer value in your data strategy, and you might not be able to complete this all at once, because again, if you're working on your data and you're figuring out, are you going to outsource it? Is it insourced? Do you need to clean it up, et cetera? You might not really be able to fill this all out. You might not have your modeling approach and how you're going to train the model yet, but you could at least start with the business problem and the business value and start shoring up your processes and getting your team assembled and et cetera. So this is what's called the AI Canvas. And obviously, when you're, going through this process, you're going to start having conversations about build versus buy, because, do you want to take the approach of building this in-house, or does it make more sense for your organization to find a vendor who's going to work with you to build your model and maintain your model? So on the next slide, I have outlined, what is build versus buy and kind of the characteristics of each to think about. So building is, where you would be developing the solutions and the models from the ground up. And those would be tailored to your specific needs and requirements. Some of you, depending on your industry, might not have the option to buy because maybe there's not, data rich models that pertain to your industry. So you're going to have to build. Buying is when you leverage ready-made AI solutions that are already pre-trained models from third-party vendors. Some of you may start by buying and then move into building. So it's not necessarily a one or the other. I think you just need to consider what works for your organization. So building is going to offer greater customization and control, but it's going to require more significant investment. You're going to need data science resources and expertise. Buying might be faster time to market, easier integration, but less customization options. And when you're thinking about, working with vendors, and again, I did provide that list of the top 50 companies according to Forbes and their criteria, which you can read about if you go there. Obviously an important thing will be that there's sustainability in whoever you select. I mean, there are hundreds of companies starting right now in AI. Just kind of like the .com era, a lot of those startup companies don't make it. They're not sustainable. So make sure you're vetting your vendors and ensuring they have enough money to sustain while working with you. They have experience that pertains to your industry. They can do the whole life cycle management, not only just develop the model, but they can maintain the model and improve the model over time. Considerations like that, I think, are important as you're considering your vendor selection. And this is really my last slide, and I think probably one of the most important ones, which is, how do we all feel about AI, and how does your staff feel about AI? And yeah, they're concerned and they're anxious and they're suspicious and they're worried. And on the other hand, they're interested and optimistic and hopeful. And I mean, I know I'm all of these things too. So a really key point I believe is critical to the success of your AI journey is really to consider the human side of this and to make sure you're bringing the humans along. And by adopting a formal change methodology, such as the ProSci ADKAR, you can build trust into the development life cycle and enhance your chance that you do have a successful implementation that is adopted. Because really it's the people in your organization that make the change by adopting the change and engaging with the change. That's how you accomplish the change. So can't emphasize enough, don't forget about the human factor when you are embracing or embarking on your journey.
I love that slide. I bet you that would be true for most of our clients, just how they think about AI. So yeah,
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, honestly, it's how I feel as well.
I know. Yeah, me too. Exactly.
I read every morning when I have my AI coffee hour. I feel like my hair is blowing back. I'm like, what is all this information? Um, so in summary, get AI literate, get your leaders AI literate, get your staff AI literate, because that's going to help you make better decisions about your organization if you kind of understand the nature of AI and what are your options. Make sure when you do start your journey that you have established the business value of your use cases and start small. Get your data in order, start evaluating your skills. Do you need to upskill people, create new roles? Don't forget to focus on your process. Think about the organizational structure and get a standard development life cycle, probably like an agile sort of life cycle where you can cycle through pretty quickly in your proof of concepts. And again, change management is really critical for success. And AI in its current state is not a replacement for human intelligence. I really view it as a partnership, and in my course, which I thought was great, they reiterated that a lot, that AI is really a partnership with humans. So it's not going to replace us necessarily, and no AI model will be perfect on day one. So these are learning models, right? So I've heard criticism about AI. Oh, it didn't work perfectly. It didn't do this, but it's still pretty amazing what it does do, and it's meant to increase in intelligence over time as data is fed through it. So just remember that. So thank you all for attending and your time here, and I would be happy to continue the conversation with any of you, and to help facilitate this in your organization should you be interested in that. And this is my contact information here, my email and my website, and just a short list of experiences that I have to help me with your AI journey. So I'll open it up for questions. Thank you.
I love
Yeah.
it. Tammy, I have one for you. When you think about for the mid-size, mid-range company,
Mhm.
and we're trying to adapt to how much information is now out there and how many places you can go and get AI. Do you have just a 1, 2, 3 kickstart? Like, this is helpful to see how you start planning. I mean, it almost feels like a new department in companies, or a new position that's helping infiltrate it across companies. But for a lot of us, where do you recommend not letting it become? I mean, I could spend 3 hours getting AI to do stuff for me because I just think it's hilariously fun to do. But how do we normal humans start utilizing it?
Well, so is your question in the context of personal
Business.
organization?
Business. Hmm.
Okay. I believe that the process that I talked about can be scaled, right? So I think, you know, I always think about how am I pleasing the customer? So what are those processes that you have that relate to customer experience? And
Hmm.
where are those not working as efficiently as they can? And then where do you have opportunity to employ AI to make you more productive, to make your quality better, to get you to decision making faster? So it would to me, it's the same process if you're doing it for a large company or a small company. And you have the same, you know, considerations around security and privacy and et cetera. And, I'm not a specialist in every tool out there. It's just like there are so many. So I think that it's use case dependent. When you would decide what use case or use cases are most important for your organization to pursue, then you can start thinking about, what are the tool options?
Hmm.
I
Start
love that. Yeah,
with the tool.
I love that, Tammy. I think about what I hear a lot about AI is chat boxes, just as an example. So, But I love the fact of thinking of it from a customer experience. And really, I feel like that is the opportunity. I have a very simple example. This is dumb, but I just have to bring it up. I had to do an icebreaker for a client. Like, you own the icebreaker for the strategic retreat. I know this is very small, but I went to my little AI chat and I said, give me some strategic some icebreakers for a strategy retreat. I know that's super small, but it just saved me about 2 hours of thinking about it. I sent it to my client and I said, "What do you think?" And we were done. But it started with him making requests and me thinking about what's the most efficient and easy way to do it.
Yeah, like I
So
said,
that's just so simple.
don't bring a technology in looking for a problem to solve.
Right, exactly.
Right?
Right. Yeah.
Think
Yeah.
about what are you trying to accomplish, and then, evaluate what are the options out there
Yeah.
that are going to best accommodate that problem.
Yeah. That's great.
Mhm.
I know this is hard with a bigger group. Does anyone have anything that they want to add that they're dying to say? I know some of you might be dying to ask or dying to comment. Anyone? No? This is
Actually,
surprising.
I have a question.
Oh, good. Good. We love questions.
Yes. Hi, Tammy. I'm just sitting here listening to your presentation, and coming from a nonprofit background and being a nonprofit consultant, I'm just sitting here thinking how important AI could be towards philanthropy in nonprofits, thinking around, especially around goals. So assessing what's, possible, strategy, knowing who your donor is. And then the last one for those and I think in business too, structure, having to do that CRM cleanup and understanding what's going on in your CRM. And I'm just wondering, in your Kellogg class, was there a segment of your training that differentiated AI for business versus nonprofits in terms of its implementation?
They did not get into that, and Christine, I'm happy to have a conversation with you one-on-one afterwards, and but they didn't specifically talk about not-for-profit. They did talk a lot about CRM capabilities. I mean, they had whole entire modules on, the commercial side, the operational side, the risk side, and then like support services. So there's a lot more information,
Yeah.
On these topics. But I just had
Yeah, well, I think Cindy's question really, in your answer to Cindy's question, was really helpful too. That really, in theory, the implementation could be very similar for larger corporations and smaller companies as well, which would be the same.
Yeah, I mean, in all the kind of approaches I've always taken, these things can be scaled up or down. So, you can do them in a broad sense or in a more narrow sense, in a smaller or larger scale. So
I would say all of my clients that I've worked with have AI on their strategic roadmap. And I think for me, just coming out of here and challenging them to put together an AI team to identify someone to own it, literally who's leading that, who's going to be the aggregator of information, and then asking, what is the problem to solve, starting with that framework and who do we need to help. And I think that that's some great insight for any change, is that one, just identifying a team and a leader and then getting resources. Because most of the time when we do a big change like this, we don't know what we're doing. So most of the, it's new information. Most of my clients are going to need help, or they would have already done it. That's kind of how change happens. So that's awesome. Any other, I know a couple people, we agreed to 3:00, 1 hour, anything from anyone else?
A quick question. I hope, and Tammy, nice job. I think maybe you touched on this early on, but organizationally, where do you see the ownership, the championship, the gatekeeping for AI within an organization? Where is that residing as people are beginning to adopt?
yeah, so yeah, I did cover that. and I think one, it depends on the size of your organization, right? So I covered kind of those three models. You might create a center of excellence, you might have hub and spoke, or you might have it in the business units. And there are considerations, around the size of your organization with the CapEx et
Yeah.
cetera. There are different things that you would consider to determine the best place in your organization. So that's not a one size fits all answer. I think there are some key considerations for every organization to consider when they're deciding where to put it. And they might decide one thing to start, and it evolves as they mature into an actual center of excellence,
Yeah.
so it just depends, I think, on the characteristics of an organization, their AI strategy, their resources to fund it. Do they have the resources to have a chief executive AI officer and create a center of excellence? Or does it need to be a functional business leader who puts on two hats and takes on that responsibility? I think it just depends on the characteristics of an organization.
Sure.
Yeah, that's a for, again, the clients that I would serve, which are under the 500 person, 10 to 200 million. I feel like it would have to be in the technology side because I don't think anyone else could do it. And it's certainly not going to be owned by the CEO. Again, company excluded, because I know I have
Oh,
some.
sorry, I meant center. I'm sorry. I'm saying center of excellence, where you create a whole function
Oh
of
yeah,
like a whole AI function, just like you have finance, you have an
yeah,
AI.
yeah. But who would start? Like, where would it start? Like, where? I mean, that's where we want to get. But I would say, like, if I'm coming out with a team, I got to work on it now. Who's going to lead it? And
Yeah, that was really my
One
question.
school-
Kind of like, who are you seeing be the champion, or is it just all over the place? It's too
Well,
new.
there's one school of thought, and this was in my class, where they said, depending on your data intensity outcome, like say if all of your rich data is in the commercial side and your use cases are all going to be like commercially focused, then maybe it's the chief commercial officer who starts with the ownership of it. So there's that aspect too, right? So depending on your organization and where your data is coming from and where your opportunity is, it might make sense, like I said, to put it under a functional leader who wears two hats.
Mhm. Sure.
Hmm.
Those are just like
Yeah,
different
hi Tammy. Long
Hi,
time no see.
Tom.
Yeah, it seems to me that.
Tom used to be my boss.
That, that the impetus for AI is gonna almost be, I think you gotta have the strategy at the top. But I think the use cases are gonna come from the people who are closest to the data, truthfully.
Yeah.
We're looking at it every day and saying, here's a highly repetitive task, or here's I want to get some insights and I don't know exactly how to do it. So they write a good prompt and then ask AI to say to come up with some ideas like you did, Darcy. So I think somebody's got to control it, right? But I think a lot of the impetus is going to come from the people closest to the data.
Yeah. That's awesome. All right. Well, call Tammy. Call Tammy if you need anything. She's going to be she's our magic pill to solve this. Thank you, Tammy. Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you, and thank you all for
Thanks,
attending.
Tammy.
Good to see you all.
Great job.
Appreciate the interaction too. Thanks for sharing at the end, guys. Thank you.
Yeah.